I would like to talk about technological dialectics. How technology forces change to happen, whether you like it or not. And I would speak to it from the perspective of money. How technology has changed the way that we relate with money. Okay, so I remember being in primary school, primary 4 to be exact. And my mother was a busy professional at the time. And I was kicked out of school because I hadn't paid my school fees. And it wasn't because we couldn't afford to pay the school fees. It was because my mom had not had time to pay the school fees. And the reason she hadn't had time to pay the school fees was because she hadn't had time to go to the bank and withdraw the money and go to the school and pay the money. So on the day I was sent out of school, I went to meet her in the office, and she said, okay. She gave me a note to the clerk at the bank where she banked. And she asked one of the drivers from her office to take me to the bank. And I got there. There was a huge crowd of people. They all had a tally number. I can't remember the number of the tally that I was given. But she did ask me to ask for a certain lady. So when they gave me the tally number, which put me right at the back of the line, I was hungry, I was tired. I asked for the lady wasn't there. So I waited. The bank closed by 3 p.m. back then. By 3 p.m., the lady hadn't come back. Short version of the story is I didn't get the money. So the next day, my mom had to take time off work to get to the bank and get the money. Fast forward several years later, I'm sitting in my office, and I get an SMS from my wife. It's a message about something to do with my son's school fees, a levy that they had been asked to pay, and she had forgotten to tell me about it. And this was the last day we needed to make a payment. They were supposed to go on an excursion. So I log into my cell phone, and I do a bank transfer, and the money moves from my account to the school account. And somebody in the school gets an alert, logs into internet banking to confirm that I've made the payment, and they include my son's name in the list of the people who were going to go on an excursion. Same scenario, same need, different outcome because of the power of technology. So there was a time when that used to happen. But today, it's all changed. And I wish that I could show you some of the stats that I had queued up, but there seems to be a technical challenge, so we'll just move on. Every time technology changes something, one of two things happens. You would either have a set of people making a lot of money, or two things happen. You have one set of people who make a lot of money, and you have another set of people who lose money. That's what disruption does in every economy. With what has happened in the payment sector in Nigeria, where we've moved from a totally cash-based society to a society where you can sit here, move money around through your phone, you can log into internet banking and shop on Amazon and have it shipped to your house. You can go to an ATM, right? Okay, so we're back. So these are the things that you can do today because of the way that technology has been applied. And pay attention to the picture that is in highlights. People moving money through mobile phones. This is the power of what we've been able to do in the financial sector to make life easy for people. But what I would love for you to pay attention to is mobile technology. Mobile technology is the future of everything that you're going to do. So, you're able to pay bills on your mobile. Your social media interactions are happening on mobile. Virtually every aspect of your life that you deal with on a day-to-day basis now, you're able to do on mobile. Health management is moving to mobile. Buying micro-insurance is moving to mobile. The financial sector is also mobile. Identity management is also mobile. It points in one direction. The mobile technology value chain is the herald of a new economy. And I like to tell people that if you can see where things are headed, don't wait till the bus gets there. Start jogging. Have you seen, everybody here must have seen a relay race, right? So the guy who has the baton and is running, he's going to hand it over to someone. What does the guy who is waiting for the baton typically do? He starts moving. We need a paradigm shift in this part of the world. What's the shift that I would like to advocate for? Technology has enabled the world to become much flatter than people used to think it was. So now the world is actually flat because of technology. Getting from point A to B can be done in nanoseconds. We need to build capacity to become a part of that value chain. We need to transit from being a resource-only based economy as a country and as a people in Africa. So as a country, Nigeria, and as a people in Africa generally, we need to transit from the resource-based bias for our creativity and productivity to actually harnessing the power that comes with technology. Okay, so the few stats that I wanted to talk about were, what you see on your screen right now is a top 10 ranking of countries by number of mobile phones. Nigeria ranks 7th in that ranking with 167 million mobile phones. 167 million. So the population count says that we're about 174 million Nigerians. And we have 164 million mobile phones. That is 90-something percent, 94% penetration. Now, cast your mind back to what I said about the convergence that is happening in the mobile space. And we have this level of penetration. There is an entire economic value chain in the mobile space. Do we have the competences? Do we have the skill sets to play in that value chain? Are we aware of the competences? Are we aware of the skill sets that are required to play in that value chain? Because it is one thing to understand where you are at and where you need to be. Or rather, it's one thing to understand where you are, it's another thing to understand the distance between where you are and where you need to be. It all begins with mapping the gap. So we need to map the gap between where we are and where we need to be. Okay. I have a few other slides where I would show you that Nigeria today has a 54%, 32% internet penetration rate. That means 32% of those 174 million people that we are on the internet. Contrast it with a few other countries. South Africa has a population of about 44 million. Remember I said 32% of 174 million. How many is that? At 32% penetration rate, we have more people on the internet than the entire South African population. And we have done only 32%. Well over 60% of that 32% is accessing the internet via mobile devices. Let that sink in for a moment. But guess what? Something worries me. In spite of this potential, in spite of this room for growth, I worry that my generation of Nigerians occupy a very unique position in my estimation. I wasn't born I'm not a millennial, so I'm not a digital native. I was taught computer appreciation after I finished secondary school. I didn't grow up with computers. I didn't grow up with tablets and iPads. At 2 years old, my daughter was an iPad expert. That's all I can say. You just needed to give her an iPad, and she was fine. She's 5 now. She's a pro. She hasn't had any formal training. She's a digital native. I'm not. I occupy a generational space that straddles the two worlds. I started out analog. I had to migrate myself into a digital worldview. I had to learn it. It's second nature. Well, yeah, second nature, because sometimes I still try to do things the old way. But for people in the generation coming after who are digital natives, the reality is different. You cannot imagine a world without these devices. You can't imagine an unconnected world. There are people in this room, I guess, who can't fathom a world where you couldn't pick up a phone and call someone. You can't imagine a world where if you couldn't call someone and you had to see them and they lived in a different state, you had to go to the park, board a bus, and drive from Port Harcourt to Lagos, and then find out that your uncle moved out of that address 3 months ago. Yeah. I worry that the handoff from my generation to the purely digital guys who do not have these reference points has been ineffective, such that you do not appreciate the opportunity that being a digital native affords you. And so I am not seeing the traction in people positioning themselves to leverage those advantages that are available. It's happening in pockets. It's happening in pockets. But it needs to gain traction, and it needs to become a mass movement. And I believe that can be achieved if enough of the awareness is put out there for people. There's an entire gamut of things that can be done based on the skills, the core skills that you already have by being able to navigate technology seamlessly. The entire financial industry, where I work, for instance, is transiting from analog service propositions that are based on outdated technology and outdated design to seamless and interactive service options that are very similar to the experiences that you have with the media that you are exposed to. So, for instance, we now have service offerings where, as against you even paying with a card, a company recently launched, I'm not going to name names because I'm not selling. A company recently launched a service where you can scan a QR code at a shop to make a payment. Everybody knows what a QR code is, right? Okay, let's move on. So you can scan, you can bring out your phone. So imagine with me that you went to Everyday Supermarket. It's Everyday, right? Down the road. You went to Everyday Supermarket, you have your basket full of things, and you are at checkout. And instead of bringing out money, instead of bringing out your debit card, you bring out your phone. There's a QR code at the cashier point. It's stuck on the wall there. Scan. Confirm. Pay. That is the sort of transformation that has happened. I didn't say that is going to happen. That has happened now. But I'm telling you that to tell you that it is people behind the scenes that are building the solutions. There are skills required to build these solutions. There are skills required to market the solutions, because the way we used to market is no longer the way that people want to be sold to. So marketing is now also digital marketing. There is a wide range of economic opportunities in the value chain that has been created by the disruptive effects of technology in my space, which is the financial space. And I believe that is happening in every sector of the economy. If I said API, does anybody here know what an API is? Except the guys who are in core development. Yeah, just one hand, maybe two. But this is the language that you need to begin to speak. If I said web services, who would know what I'm talking about? We need to have a paradigm shift. Never before has there been an opportunity for you to actually create value than now in Nigeria. Anybody who says to me now that there are no jobs in Nigeria, I look at you and I'm like, okay, move on. Don't know what you're talking about. Because if you have your head on in the right way, there are very easy steps that you can take, building on, like I said, the native ability you have to navigate technology to actually get into the economic value chain immediately. Technological dialectics, thesis, antithesis, synthesis. The conditions are right for you to take charge of your money. It's all about money, right? And the way we interact with money. You can begin to do things that will set you on a path to economic prosperity by taking very few, very little steps in addition to what you already know about how to use technology. And when we begin to do things like this, things like what the lady we saw in the video is trying to do will begin to resonate with the world. And people will stop looking at Africa as a charity case. Change that paradigm now. Thank you.